So before I begin talking about this week's episode of Bunny Girl Senpai, got a new background. You can see it. It's all new. You can see my figures here, my posters. You see my old bookshelf that used to be behind me way off there. There's a couple of things behind me, but yeah, it's my new setup. So hopefully you guys enjoy the new background. I might readjust it if it really isn't that good. It really depends, but yeah. Anyways, let's begin. Let's talk about this week's episode of Bunny Girl Senpai. Episode 3 concludes the, first arc of the story. It actually, in all honesty, if I was to, let's say, not know this was episode 3, I would say that this would be a perfect conclusion for Bunny Girl Senpai. That's what I would think. If I was just coming into the series and I was, just watching off and on and I saw this, I'd be like, oh, okay, so this is the finale of the series. Because when you look at what happened within this episode, it's clear as day that it concluded the main point of what the story was kind of about, or what it presented to us, which was the main female character, Mai, apparently disappearing. Apparently, erasing from everybody's existence. And I've already talked about how scary that would be if that happened to you. I mean, imagine this, okay? If you're, one day nobody saw you, nobody can even detect your presence. At first, it would seem cool. You can get away with anything. You do whatever you want. But there will be a time when you'll realize how lonely you are. You won't be able to interact with anyone. You won't be able to share anything with anyone because nobody will even know you're there. So my situation is just truly frightening. It's probably a fate worse than death itself. And that's what was happening to her, as we know. In episode 3, what we all assume could potentially happen, for instance, Sakuta forgetting her, it did happen. But the way it happened, but also how long it took for that to happen within the episode, was the biggest shocker to me. Because, look, as I said in my, last episode review of Bunny Girl Senpai, I said as soon as Sakuta went to sleep, most likely the episode was going to begin with him not even knowing who Mai was. That's what I assumed the episode was going to start with. I talked about it. You can go back and check me if you don't believe me. But, that did not happen. The episode did start off very similar to what I thought it would start off. Showing Sakuta laying in the bed, showing the time, and then he looks over to Mai and she's there. And so it does show that Mai was still being able to be detected by Sakuta. And I was like, whoa, what? So he actually remembered. I was like, well, that's pretty crazy. But then we found out that he actually never went to sleep. So in a way, I was kind of correct on my thought process on what might happen. But still, it took a lot longer than I expected, and I'm just glad they didn't settle for the standard cliche of making it just so freaking obvious. But I do like how this episode was handled, and the little themes and messages throughout. One of the biggest themes that this episode really wants to show is that an atmosphere can really harm people. See, in an environment that has a lot of people in it, it's a very social environment, let's say a workplace, school, whatever. Usually, if, let's say, there's an individual that's an outcast, the black sheep amongst the group, many will continue to, look at that individual that's kind of already been labeled as a black sheep and continuously label him as. Let's say it was a normal person. Let's say he was a normal person, or anyone was a normal person, but for some reason he was the black sheep in the group. Like a couple individuals like, oh, he's an outcast, he's a weird one, don't worry about him, don't go around him. It starts off like that, rumors or whatever. And eventually, a little small group turns into a massive group because more people spread this information. They tell others, and more people get in on it, and they just continue to roll with it. That's typically what happens in society. It's a typical thing that happens. That's what happens with people that get bullied as well. People that get bullied, usually the one that's getting bullied and the bully, everybody just kind of looks past it. They don't really want to stand up. You do have some few individuals that do stand up and try to stop it, but for the most part, there's a lot of people that'll just straight up ignore it and not even look at it and just keep walking on. And that's pretty much what was happening to Mai. That everybody just, got this atmosphere to where just don't pay attention to her. Don't look at her, don't try to focus too much on her. And that in turn turned to everybody just not being able to see her because it was just an atmosphere that swept across everybody and it just took by storm, and that's why nobody can remember Mai. Now, I know Mai's case is slightly different. It's very extreme compared to that because, typically, if it didn't have any supernatural elements, we could just chalk it up to bullying. Like, they were just ignoring Mai's existence because they were bullying her, and they just didn't want to, you know, even respect the fact that she even existed. But that technically was not the case. It's just an extreme version of it to where it is everybody's fault, but at the same time, there is some supernatural forces that are at work here, because, I mean, the atmosphere swept over them, and then in turn, it made it a reality to where everybody forgot about her. And that was the case, what happened within this episode. Now, the main fix to this was to change the atmosphere. Now, I highly doubt the situation is going to be as easily able to be fixed as, like, other situations, because apparently, judging by the next episode preview, we're going to be getting into another person that's been going through, like, some form of symptom of, like, this supernatural phenomenon, and I highly doubt, you know, it's going to be the exact same thing, you know, have the atmosphere rewritten or whatever, because this, I think, was a very different ballgame compared to what happened towards, let's say, you know, Sakuta's sister or him, how he got a gash on him. It's very different compared to that, and so I feel like there's going to be different ways to handle it, but Mai's way was definitely probably the best way to handle it, and he overwrote that atmosphere by just announcing his love towards a girl. And as you know, rumors and everything spreads, especially as a guy that already has a rumor about him, someone that, you know, is known to be the hospitalized guy, someone that hospitalized someone. You know, with that rumor spreading around, obviously, you know, people would pay attention to him. They'll look at him thinking he's weird or an oddball, and then when he starts talking about someone like Mai, and then they'll put the piece and they're like, oh, Mai, it's that girl and all that, and then everybody will start remembering. So I do find how cute that final segment was, Sakuto announcing his love for Mai. I did not expect that. I know this series was probably going to have some romance. I just did not expect that type, especially that type of confession on the third episode. And once again, this really does remind me a lot of Snafu and Monogatari. I know I say it a lot, but it really does remind me a lot of it. I mean, when you look at just the dialogue to just the interactions, it's so familiar, and I'm really falling in love with Bunny Girl Senpai. It's easily one of the best series of fall of anime 2018. But, anyways, I do like the little dialogue towards the end of the episode where Sakuta, you know, he's announcing his love for Mai, and then Mai is like, you know, tell me what you really feel, you're lying or whatever, and he's like, you're stepping on me, he's like, oh, don't worry about that or whatever. I just love the little exchange between them and how she's not really being honest, and she's just saying certain things, but then she also implies that she really appreciates the fact that, you know, he did confess his love for her, and then when, you know, he's like, I'm sorry and all that, and she's like, yeah, I thought you said you'd never forget me, and she's like, I'll never forgive you, and then he grabs her, he's like, I guess I'll never let you go until you forgive me, but then she's like, I guess I will never forgive you then, which I thought that was very cute, because it was basically saying that she liked having Sakuta hold her, so just an adorable episode, a very adorable episode. It hit my heartstrings. If you love romance, you're gonna love this episode, and you're gonna love, you know, Bunny Girl Senpai. Now, I do hope that the interaction between Mai and Sakuta, this isn't the last time we ever see it. I mean, obviously, they're the main characters. I just feel like the situation is probably going to be very reminiscent of what happens in the Monogatari series with our MC in that series. I just feel like Araragi, how he goes around and helps people, I'm assuming that's what's going to probably happen with Sakuta as well. Now, one last thing I do want to talk about is the final segment with just the beautiful art. I mean, I know it isn't, like, crazy, but I really appreciate just the beauty in the, like, facial expressions of Sakuta and Mai when the confession happens, his emotions when he remembers, just all these little nitty-gritty scenes right there. I really appreciate that, and it just shows that a lot of effort is being put into this series. And so, definitely a series that continues to impress me week after week, and FYI, this is episode 3 of Bunny Girl Senpai, so this will typically determine if people are going to continue watching or drop said series. And so I want to ask the question I always do when a series is doing really well, but wanting to know how the public feels about it. How do you feel about Bunny Girl Senpai? Do you think this series is doing rather well for itself? Do you think it's a good anime adaptation? Which, that's a good one. Light novel readers, people that have read the original source of Bunny Girl Senpai, how is this adaptation? Is it following everything? Is it doing a good adaptation? Or is it doing a really poor job? I mean, be honest in the comments below. I am very curious about that because, I mean, I'm enjoying it, but I just don't really know how the original source content is and how the original source readers are feeling about Bunny Girl Senpai. But anime onlys, how do you feel? I mean, are you going to continue watching? Are you going to drop said series? I mean, be honest in the comments below. I'm very curious. And with that, I think I want to end this video here. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified, for any videos I upload in the future, please click the bell icon down below, because for some reason, even if you click the subscribe button, you don't always get notified. So if you want to get notified, make sure to click it. And so I guess with that, I love you guys. Chibi out.